I'm in a B2B marketing role, and, Gen Z isn't, something that I've spent a lot of time, studying. And over the course of the last week, I've done my research and listening to some of the great presenters today from like JBL and Elf Cosmetics and Invisalign. Have learned so much from the group. So we've covered off on consumer electronics and CPG, and now we're moving into the retail space. So Ashley, you know, uh, I know you're in your role at American Eagle. Um, this is probably really your sweet spot. So tell us, what stands out as a marketer for the Gen Z audience.
Yeah, it's definitely our sweet spot. A is synonymous with youth culture, which today is Gen Z. So a few things about Gen Z that I find most interesting. It is the largest generation, which as a retailer, as the number one jeans retailer in the US, a large generation that is in my target, obviously very tempting. They're the most diverse generation. Diversity is their normal. They grew up with diversity being the norm. They're digitally native. They grew up with this in their hands and their entire life revolves around it. Whereas all of us, and I would imagine most of the people on this call, can imagine many things they did without this. They actually wrote directions on paper and all sorts of crazy things like that. They are tough customers. They believe in brands who have values, not just products. That's a much tougher job for brands, or a more important one rather. And they have a bullshit meter. So there's a rawness to them because of how they consume content, because of how they interact with brands, because it's a two-way conversation. They can kind of feel out the realness of the brands that they are interacting with. I mean, you could talk about Gen Z all day, but those are some of the things that I feel beyond the things that are obvious about how they interact with brands versus we do, that I think that really shape how we market to them.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about, social consciousness and like being socially aware. And I know, up until recently, the number one cause was climate change or climate crisis. And, it's slowly evolving to be more around social justice. How at American Eagle do you make decisions about what causes you get behind or which ones you actually talk about in your marketing?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right in terms of what are the causes that rise to the top for them. First and foremost, we obviously do an extensive amount of research that's led by my counterpart, Melissa Halverson, who's amazing. And she's constantly, tapping into our customer. American Eagle is a reflection of our customers. We take our decisions very thoughtfully, the decisions that we make, I apologize, and we look to our customers to guide us to make those decisions. You don't want to be making decisions about a generation from, your glass office or dining room table in today's case, but you want to reflect that customer. Two, I think you need to really think about what can you make an impact on as a brand. There's a million causes we all believe in personally and professionally, but what can you impact? So for American Eagle, we have a Real Good campaign, which is based around sustainability. Jeans is one of the dirtiest water businesses out there. So we felt that as a brand, Real Good was something we could stand behind. And it's our promise to make an impact by using Real Good factories and Real Good materials. So saving 1 billion gallons of water per year. Reducing the amount of water used per pair of jeans by 14%. Those are things that matter to our audience, but they're also things that we as a brand can make an impact on. We can change, we can help the world in that way. So I sort of like to look at it as a balance between what do our kids want? What do they believe in? How do we reflect those things? But then also, is it something that we can really help? Can we impact it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the relationship has to be organic, right? It has to be something that makes a difference,
Totally.
or it registers that bullshit meter that you were talking about.
Always got the bullshit meter, yeah.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned it's this generation is especially diverse and connected. I mean, connected in every which way, right? And I heard recently that they're also very, fiscally conservative. 12% surprisingly are already, saving for retirement. How have you leaned in at American Eagle? Have you leaned in on the value message, like showing value in your brand?
Well, the word value can be defined in two ways. So one is about worth or usefulness, which is what you're alluded to, which is really dollars. And the second is standards. What is important to you? So at American Eagle, we have a saying that is, we like to say price is what you pay, value is what you remember. So you're sort of playing on both of those things. So American Eagle, we're committed to providing the highest quality, most innovative denim out there for the best value and price. Quality is paramount at everything, in everything that we do. But beyond that traditional definition, Gen Z, as we talked about earlier, they want to be participating in brands that share the same values as them. So value can come from integrity. It can come from positivity. It can come from freedom to be the true you. It can come from everyone being welcome. We talk about diversity. It comes from community. It comes from brands who are passionate about the things that they are passionate. So I think it's a balance at American Eagle in terms of how we provide value for the customer. And it's really playing off those two definitions, because when you think about value and why people fall in love with brands, I've been quoted saying this before, nobody fell in love with the brand because they gave them something for free. You're not like, oh, I love these jeans, I got them for free. No, you love these jeans because they're an amazing product at the best value you can get them, but also they're from American Eagle. What an amazing brand. They're so inclusive. They really represent what I like. They're on the top of social innovation. Those are all the things that I want people to say about us, by the way. I'm just giving a plug there. But I think it's a balance of both, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, when I think about jeans, I think about how challenging it is, to find jeans that fit. Are there anything, anything that you're doing in your advertising that kind of help guide people through that journey and make it easier? Now that we're having to, shop online, a lot of, almost becoming more of a D2C brand. Um, how are you helping them navigate that and making it easier for them to find things that fit?
I think it's twofold. So one, it's about meeting your customer where they're spending their time. So traditional roles of channels don't exist anymore. That idea of, oh, here's the store and here's the e-commerce experience, and then maybe let's go back in time, scroll through Facebook. That doesn't exist. All of those worlds, it's like Omni on fire, right? Like they've all become one, and you could really do everything on social commerce. So I think one, it's about meeting your customer, how they want to engage with your brand, how they want to explore your products, and ultimately how they want to shop it. The second piece, more on the technology front around fit, we actually recently just launched some AR technology that we're leveraging that is via Snapchat. We've launched a denim guide that shows you all the fit, all of the specifications of several pairs of our jeans, for example, our mom jeans, and you can interact with it, and it tells you, it fits at the waist here and it's a little wider here. This is where the stretch is. And one of the reasons why I love that example is I think it shows how you take traditional ways of learning about products. And you and I actually talked about this previously.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, if you wanted to learn about a brand or a product, you went www. whatever company it was, and you went to the little about section, and you're like, oh, that's so nice. They're from Raleigh, North Carolina, and Janie and Joe started it in 1954, whatever the case may be. Today, when you want to learn about a product, you go on social media. If you're a Gen Zer, you're not used to, you don't want to go in the store and get a flyer in the mail that's like, oh, this jean fits this way and this way. They don't understand a two-dimensional experience at all. Their whole life is in 3D. So by launching this AR experience with Snapchat, we were able to show function and fit to an audience in a way that makes sense to them. It may not make sense to you or I, Laurie, but I would love to get a flyer in the mail that told me which. It's very clear for me. I'd be like, oh, that's me. I'm the hourglass shape, or I'm the apple, or whatever it was that it used to be back in the day. But this is how they want to experience products. That's how they're used to interacting. That's how they talk to their friends. So I think it's about speaking their language.
I think that's so fascinating. I think, that was one of the things that stood out to me. So I didn't mention this earlier, but at Neustar, we really help brands like American Eagle understand and navigate their customer journey and understand where their customers live, what channels they're engaging with. And one of the things that really stood out was, the number of channels that exist and how Gen Z are engaging on all of them. I think you and I also touched on this,
Yeah.
that it's we I think sometimes feel overwhelmed by the channels, and it's native to them. It's always been that way. So it's the ones that resonate with them, and they might go to certain ones for certain things. So how, as a marketer, how do kind of think about that and personalize the journey for them, and make sure you're touching them in the right places, in the right channels?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about every channel has a role. And we talk a lot about this idea of being present, being relevant, and being nimble. So you have to be present, and I've said this, I think, 3 times now. You have to be present where your kid is. So when you think about the channels, let's just use social as an example. So you have Instagram, you have TikTok, you have Snapchat. Let's just use, and wait, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Let's just use those 3 for the sake of the conversation, and Twitter. So let's use those 4 platforms. There is a time and a message that's right for each of those. There is a way to show up with the right content. You can no longer take one piece of content and put it on every single channel. So kids go to those channels for different things. You're going to TikTok for a sound on experience. You're going to Snapchat for the camera, right? So you as a brand want to participate in each of those channels in a meaningful way that has the right content, but also you have to be able to interact. I think that gene guide I was just explaining to you, you don't want to show up a 40-year-old soccer mom. I always say, don't show up as a 40-year-old soccer mom on Snapchat, right? It's not good. It's not cute. You want to show up like a Gen Zer. So you better do your homework and make sure you're showing up that way.
Yeah. And so I think that the other thing that's important to this generation is kind of ease of use, right? Like making it easier for them to, buy online or, buy in the moment, right? If they're on TikTok or Snap, making it easier. What are, kind of the opportunities or risks that you see with marketing to this generation?
Opportunity perspective, the opportunities are endless. Technology will continue to evolve. Technology will continue to expand. So the opportunities will continue to be endless. Currently, I think the opportunity is to deliver personalization to meet Gen Z with the right message. I think that the risk to that on the flip side is it's a required point of entry to serve people up with the right message. Just to use almost an archaic example, but imagine if you, as a shopper at a dual gender brand, started getting email about men's products, and you'd never shopped men's products. You'd say, why are you sending me this message? It's a most basic example, but I think the risk is that the bar is so high. And again, simplistic example. So I think the opportunity is just to continue to refine that, because it becomes, if you take that email example and you put it on steroids, it becomes then how do you follow them on their journey through all the channels that they use? Do they use different channels for different things? Maybe you're somebody who's very multidimensional and you use each of those channels for different things. You almost have a different personality in terms of the content that you're consuming on each of those channels. I think the other risk, which makes me sound old, there's a big brother component to it, right? So how do you balance serving up the right message to the right customer to the right time without being like, hey, stop following me and stalking me on the internet. I don't want you to know everything that I'm doing, right? There is that balance we've all experienced where we're like, how did they know that I was thinking that I wanted those boots? I didn't even tell anybody that I wanted those boots, Again, simplistic examples, but I think that those are probably the 2 things I would say today, but the opportunities are endless.
Are you also reaching, so I know, Gen Z starts with 7-year-olds, I think, at this point, and goes all the way up to 23-year-olds. So what portion of your buyer is the parents of Gen Z?
I don't have an exact number for you, but
Mhm.
it is a balance. The way that we look at it from a media perspective versus a CRM perspective is, I like to think of the year as a journey. People fall in love with brands over time. So your job is to fall and make the kid fall in love with you. You want the kid to fall in love with you. And then all the other amazing things that you're doing regarding value, regarding, and I say this to my team actually a lot, we span across a lot of the content that's created, and especially in social, you have a responsibility to show up to an audience that is really at a time in their life where they can be influenced in a very positive way and a very negative way. That has to do with content. That has to do with the type of talent that you're partnering with. As a parent, it's definitely something that I take to heart, because the brands that my kids will interact with, they don't really interact with brands. They're 3 and 5. I want to be proud of the stuff I'm putting out. I hope that I run into other parents whose kids love our brand and they say, you know what, you guys are doing such a great job. I love the positivity you guys are putting out there in the world. You know what I mean? Those are the type of feelings you need to have. So I think that it's sort of a responsibility to make sure that you're putting out content that is right for your audience and that feels like things you would be proud of, is what I'm trying to say.
So you mentioned partnering, social influencers. I've come to learn that this generation trusts social influencers more than they do people with a PhD or 20 years experience. Can you share some, well, I guess first, kind of get some thoughts from you on that, but then also maybe you could highlight some of the partnerships that you're most proud of.
Sure. So I agree with you. I think that social influencers are very important to Gen Z. I think that they influence them in every way possible. But I think that we as marketers need to remember that influencers sit across every single sector. In my role, obviously, most likely dealing with a lot of musicians, gamers, celebrities, fashion style influencers. However, there's pools of influencers who speak on sustainability, who speak on voting, who speak on diversity, who speak on politics, even very serious topics. It's just how Gen Z consumes media, how Gen Z consumes news. They do not turn on the traditional TV and say what's happening like we did when we were growing up, or even potentially today, right? That's where they get their news from, their feed. In terms of how do you craft the messages, you have to listen and understand your customer. And I think the second thing is you should hire Gen Z. We hire Gen Z. There's nobody better to market to Gen Z than Gen Z. And you will have to be open and listen to those things that they say. There are times where I'm approving copy, and if anyone's on this call on my team, they can attest to it. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. But that's why I'm not writing the copy, right? So I think it's important because you have to be fast. You have to be nimble. You have to be on the pulse of youth culture. And that's changing so fast. A trend today is gone tomorrow. So I think those are the things that you have to think about. But I do believe that the influencers and the people that you partner with is critical, because that responsibility, again, I know I sound like a broken record, remains with your partnerships as well. So you need to be thoughtful about those people and how they are bringing your brand to life and speaking to your customers.
So I think, one of the things that, we probably grew up on, as marketers in our career was this idea of perfection, right? Like everything, the copy has to be perfect and the design has to be flawless and all the, and I love the story that you told me when we talked last about your prom campaign, your live prom campaign. And I would love for you to share that story and some of your learnings from that, because I think there's a lot of us that can take away from some of that message.
Sure. So in the height of the pandemic, we created a strategy to bring our audience together for a missed moment, which was prom. Kids all over the country were going to be missing their in real life proms, which we all see as such a sentimental or memorable moment. We all could share our prom photos on this call. So we decided to create a virtual prom, leveraging technology, leveraging talent, and lots of kids. It is the night of the prom. Addison Rae is a part of it. She has over 115 million social followers alone. We are at over 105% over our target for registrations. We're so excited. Everybody's watching. All the executives, the whole company, and all these kids. I'm sitting in my family room. I've got the iPad up, the TV up. There's multiple devices, my whole family, and we're watching. And what's happening is we've leveraged all this talent, Addison Rae, Tinashe, Cash, and then several others. And you are relying on the talent who normally has teams of people around them, helping them orchestrate everything. We're all in quarantine to do this themselves, screen to screen, bouncing back and forth. And you're getting very typical situations where I'm like, okay, Laurie, you there yet? You coming, Laurie? Laurie, oops, sorry, not you, Laurie. I can't breathe. I'm sweating. There's texts back and forth. We're all calling each other. We're dying. We can't believe it. The rawness and the realness of that was not something that Gen Z even noticed. We had 22% positive sentiment. We had feedback like, I absolutely loved it. Thank you for inviting me. Oh my God, prom was amazing. How exciting. And this was live feedback because it was on YouTube and Zoom, so you could comment. I kept waiting for somebody to say, like, what's going on? What's happening with the production? But they didn't. They loved that they were seeing how real people who are celebrities, to your point about the influencers earlier, these are the people that they are inspired by and aspire to be and take inspiration from. We're just navigating it just like we are. They're just navigating the same as we are. American Eagle was just trying to do something that we had never done before in an innovative way, and they loved it. And I think that is such a testament to Gen Z and how they consume content. Gen Z themselves are creators. Every Gen Zer is a creator. Every person who has one of these is a creator. And Apple did that. That's how Apple marketed themselves, right? And it worked. So if you're Gen Z and you've spent your entire life digitally native, you've spent your entire life on social, and social is not just for scanning, it's for connecting with friends, it's for learning about brands, it's for shopping, it's for everything, it's for news, it's for everything. You can get everything from there if you're Gen Z. They are used to consuming media that happens in real time. That's not overly produced like what we grew up with, with the multi-million-dollar campaigns and the 5-minute campaign videos. They're used to selfies. And I think it was just such a turning point for me, and I think many other people in our organization and on my team, to say, it's okay. It's okay to show them how real it is. It's okay for them to see what's going on behind the scenes because they love it. That's how they create. And then it inspires them, and they're sitting around and it's different, right? They're just like, I'm gonna make a video. Versus, again, what we grew up with in terms of, oh, well, better get a crew. There's no crew, there's an Apple iPhone. So it was an amazing event. I'm so proud of my team and everything we did. But that for me was such a learning because I couldn't breathe when it was over. And everyone was like, no, it was amazing. And I was like, yeah, I thought so too. I wasn't there.
Even though a total nail biter.
100%, yeah.
So what other, obviously a ton has changed over the last year. What trends or, things that we've kind of been shifting to, do you think will stick as we start to open back up and things go back to normal?
It's the new normal, right? We know that it's the new normal. What are the trends that I think will stick? I think that the roles of the channels and this melding will stick, and I think it will move faster than it was planned to. This merge of the channels was always going to happen. We were on our way there with social commerce, but COVID expedited it. I think that will stick. I think that the role of store, versus e-commerce versus social will evolve. I think stores will become about experience. You can shop online. You don't need to go to a store, but there's nothing that you could do that compares to touching something. Ooh, how do these feel? To trying it on in real life. There's nothing. There's the experience of the interaction with the sales associate. That will never change, but I do think that technology has evolved it. That fit guide I told you about, things like that. So I think that all the roles will remain, but I think that you might see a need for stores to give a little bit more than just straight up commerce. I think that what will change is I think the sense of togetherness is going to have a lot more value on it. I think that, and this is a personal opinion, not professional or data driven, the ability to be with others and to touch, and I'll actually tell you a story. I have a 5-year-old son, and he came home and he told us he had a girlfriend. And my father said to him, "Oh, do you hold her hand?" And he said, "No, Grandpa, I do not hold her hand." My dad said, "Why not?" He said, "You're not allowed to hold hands at school because of Corona." He's 5. I think that once we move out of this, I think that the concept of people being together, and I don't even just mean in an intimate setting, I mean just this idea of people being together, this idea of groups, this idea of gathering in real life, of experiencing things with others, I think that's something that will change. I think people are craving in real life experience. I think people are craving other people. Technology will still continue to help us along the way and will always be amazing. But that's one thing that I also kind of secretly hope evolves a little bit.
Yeah, so kind of there was this jolt to digital, I think, for a lot of companies that weren't, doing a lot of e-commerce, they had this really big shift that they had to kind of approach quickly. So I wonder if it'll be, the same thing, kind of this jolt back to, wanting to be in stores and wanting to, be able to be around people in a store and touch the merchandise, as you mentioned.
I think it's also will be about experience. You need to offer more to a customer, especially if you're talking about a Gen Zer. You need to give me a reason why I should just in my bed and order it from here. Not even just order from here like that. Think about the experience you're getting on your phone. You could have your favorite influencer doing a live shop with you in a store.
Yeah. And I think too, I've heard about, the pop-up shops in retail too, where, different brands are, joining each other in store so that you can bring new products into the store that you might not have been able to purchase before. And I think that's an interesting concept that's been working as well.
It's amazing. Technology is truly amazing. I think what it's done to the retail experience, whether that's in bricks, whether that's in traditional e-commerce, or that's in social commerce, is absolutely amazing. And there's someone who will leverage all of those. And that doesn't mean because you want to buy a pair of jeans via social commerce, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't want to buy, I'm using a bad example, but a book in a store. Gen Zers don't buy books. Again, it was a bad example. Okay, a lipstick. Let's use a lipstick in a store. I also think the same way we look at the channels and the targeting of messages, I think different products and different experiences can be consumed in different channels based on your familiarity with them, based on how you want to experience. Is it a turnkey experience for you? Is it something that you want to learn more about? And how do you like to learn about things? And I think the role of the associate also has just taken on such a different role. Our associates, we have a program called My AE, where we have our associates become brand influencers, and they actually interact with customers via social media. They are stylists in their own right. You can shop with them. These are amazing things that have merged the idea of virtual and in real life. And I think you're just going to continue to see that collision, but that idea of experience and touch and being with other people, not just for shopping, but for celebration and for participating in brands beyond just transactionally, I think will continue.
What are some of the, you had mentioned hiring Gen Z, like, to keep that perspective, keep the creative new and fresh. What are, some of the channels that you're hearing or that you see kind of gaining steam?
Gaining steam. So obviously there's so much chatter around Clubhouse.
Yeah.
I think Clubhouse is probably the one that everyone has been watching and has been most relevant today. What I've seen on Clubhouse is that brands are starting to participate in it. We're looking at it, we're monitoring it, we're seeing who's participating in it, how brands are. Is it Gen Z? Is it millennial? I think that's the one that's really top of mind right now for most brands. For us, Snapchat is really a hero for us. We love Snapchat. We do a lot with them from an AR perspective, and our kid is there. Our kid is spending time there. Can't forget our friends at TikTok. Of course, that's also where our Gen Z kid is. So Snapchat and TikTok for us are still king, also followed by Instagram. If we talk about our guy, which sometimes we forget about that, you know, we need to be thoughtful, but the reality is a lot of our guys, their number one source for content is YouTube. YouTube is a place that I think people sometimes forget about. It's a little bit longer form content, also known as over 5 seconds. But you know, YouTube's a really important channel for us as well. That's where our guy is really engaging with content. We need to become a content hub there because that's where he's looking for information. Twitch, another great one. We really love the passion point of gaming. It's the number one passion point for guys 18 to 25, and it stays pretty consistent through 35. And that's where they are. That's where they're spending their time. So a little bit less known than the, you know, the top 3, if you will, but that's really what we have our eyes on right now.
That's great. And some of those channels I have not been on, so not as familiar. So what would a campaign look like on Twitch, or, creative look like on Twitch, for example?
So there's all different things to do with Twitch. So from a gaming perspective, I was talking about this morning, actually. So kids watch other kids play games, video games. So I was having this conversation actually with my boss, Craig Browners. He's the CMO. And we were watching it together. He said to me, it's kind of like if I was watching Federer at the Open, like this is their Federer. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense when you say it that way, totally. So kids can watch other, sorry, that's a reminder. Kids watch other famous gamers play games. They learn from them. They can interact with the gamer on them through chat. They can do things called Twitch bits, which is basically Twitch currency. Twitch also is a content hub for music. So there's millions of ways. And then also there's obviously advertising and things of that nature. But it is a place that my perspective on Twitch is I think it's one of the platforms where there's the highest engaged consumer. I think the consumer who is on Twitch is highly, highly engaged with the content that's there. But they've really risen to the top from a music perspective during the pandemic.
How I think, we talked about how, like, building trust with this audience, and they're there's probably a place where you have to, make sure that they're going to believe the messages that you're putting on, and they're going to feel kind of authentic to that channel. What are some of the things that you do to make, work with the social media managers to make sure that it's kind of, sticks with brand, but then also sticks with, the audience that's relevant to that channel?
Listen to your customers. That's my best piece of advice to anyone is listen to them. The beauty of social media as a brand is it's a two-way conversation. You can see it's like seeing inside their brains, which I know is scary, but it is, social media is an open book. You can learn what's happening in social media. You can see what the kids are thinking. You can see what they're engaged with. You can hear what they want. You also have a very engaged audience. They're going to tell you what they want. So listen to them. Make sure it makes sense for your brand, but listen. And when I said before, hire Gen Z, do it. They know what they want. In terms of being authentic, the second layer to that is know what your brand is. Know what your brand stands for. Make sure that the content you're putting up, the places you're showing up, and the people that you're partnering with are authentic to who you are. I think lastly, from an authentic perspective, I keep saying this, but you really need to think about the responsibility we have when we're putting this content out there. So I think it needs to be authentic, but it also has to be responsible. Responsible as a brand, responsible as an adult, and responsible as somebody who's really, reaching millions and millions of people with information. So, but my number one thing would be to listen.
What's on the horizon for spring? It's starting to get warmer. I think people are excited about the prospect of being outside and around other people more. What's happening at American Eagle this spring?
Well, we launched our spring campaign back in March, no, February 25th. With the pandemic, it's very hard to remember what month it is.
Okay.
We're featuring our friends from OBX. We have Chase Stokes in it and Madison Bailey, which we are super excited about. They're so positive and they just have such an amazing connection and they look amazing in our product. And the campaign, what was amazing about the two of them is they already had this connection from being on the show together, and it really came to life. Their personalities really shine. We really wanted to take our customers outside to experience the world. We've all been locked up. So that's what we did. We took it outside. We took it to optimism. We wanted to give good vibes and show people really the comfort and ease of our clothing. The second layer is we launched a social campaign called Jeans On and Get Out There. And it is exactly what it is. Jeans on and get out there. So number one, everyone get your jeans on. You should have jeans on. I know that I can't see you under the table, but we all need to practice putting our jeans on or jean shorts. I'm open. Two, get out there. Get out there could be as simple as, opening up your front door and standing on your patio or your balcony. Getting out there could be putting your jeans on and going skateboarding in them, or going on a hike, or going to the beach, or whatever you like to do. Have a hot dog on the street, whatever. But it's really this idea of let's experience the world. Let's get out there. Let's feel the freedom of doing whatever it is you want to do, whatever is going to make you happy. But I think we are all craving adventure and exploring. So you should do that in your AE jeans.
I love that. And I'm a big fan of the show, so I'm excited to see that campaign come to life.
Yeah, check it out. It's doing amazing. I'm so proud of it, and they're wonderful to work with. So we're very appreciative and thankful for the partnership.
Well, Ashley, this was great. I learned so much, and it was a great event today. So thanks, Maya, to you for including us.
Amazing. Thank you guys for joining us today. Your conversation about social strategies, not only targeting Gen Z, but advocating for their missions was really great to hear. And as a Gen Zer myself, I can definitely say that when I think about my favorite brands, it's not necessarily my favorite products that I'm thinking about, but I'm